Alright, what's up everybody? Mr. Mir here, and we are back again today with our GitHub Classroom teacher help, teacher guide, teacher basics, whatever we're calling this. And in this video, we are going to see what students see and what we see when a student starts working on an assignment that has auto grading turned on and test running. And hopefully you're hearing this right now, because if you are hearing this, that means that I wasn't disappointed enough in the first three videos, to kind of scrap the whole project and start over again. So if you're hearing this, that means that I saved a lot of time and I didn't have to re-record. But if you're not hearing this, well, then nobody's going to hear this. And we are starting on GitHub Classroom where we ended the last video. We made our project. We made our assignment here for testing our three random methods that we wanted students to work on. And we set up, we're just going to refresh here. We set up 4 different tests. Realistically, you would only do one of the 3 ways shown off, and you would have tests set up for that. So our first test here, if we remember correctly, was running all the tests in the project. That means even if we have multiple test classes, every single test is getting run. That's the all test one. Now the points will work as 0 or 30. We either pass all the tests or we don't. So there is no in between. You get a 15 out of 30, a 20 out of 30, 22 out of 30. So you either get 0 or you get 30, depending on if you pass or not. That's the way it should be, I believe. We will see when we test. You know, my brain's kind of fried right now, so I don't really remember, but I'm pretty confident it's 0 or 30. The single class testing, that was if we had multiple test classes, but we only wanted to run all the unit tests in one of the classes. Or I could set up this type of test up 2 or 3 times on an assignment and run all the tests in each class, kind of each class as its own, and assign points based on if that class passed all its tests or not. So basically, if all the tests pass in the 3 randoms class, I'd get 10 points. I could have 2 randoms as another test, and that would be a different class I would run, and maybe that would be worth 5 points, and I would get 0 or 5, just like I would get 0 or 10 here. So I could have multiple of these test cases set up depending on how many classes I have. So that's another option. And then the last 2 options here are going into a specific class and then running only a specific method inside that class. So that's our last way setting up here, and we did that for our count dogs method, so we have that set up for each one of those. So we're going to see all these tests run, and basically we're going to only write code for count dogs. So these 2 should fail and these 2 should pass, and these 2 should fail because all our other methods aren't going to work. So that's kind of gonna show off how all of this would happen. So that's where we ended. So I'm going to switch to a student side right now, and let me actually switch back here on my side and get ready for the student acceptance. Yeah. So we're going to see a student side right now, and then we will kind of view everything happening from both angles, and we will go back and forth. I'm starting out on the student view. So the student has accepted the assignment, and we can jump right in and we can either go to actions or pull requests. So if I go to actions right now, that has my GitHub workflow, and it's running through kind of getting everything set up, and the auto grading will eventually kind of run and we will see auto grading appear. I can also go to pull request, go to the feedback pull request, which gets set up because I check that box that's enable pull request. So even if you don't have auto grading, always recommend checking that box because it's so awesome in what it allows you to do with students. So you don't have to worry about them understanding pull request right away. You can kind of set it up for them, lead them into it, explain how it works. But anyways, under the pull request, the feedback one, I can also see the unit test running right here. So this is what the student sees. Now I'm going to switch back to teacher view. And in the teacher view here, I'm on the student's repository. I can go to pull request, feedback, and I am going to see what the student sees. Now it has run and it has failed the test. And if I switch back to the student view, they have failed the test. They can see the same thing. So you can see back and forth here that we see the same exact thing. I'm going to stay on the student view for right now because I don't need to show the teacher view. The teacher's not going to be making the changes. The student is. So I'm going to show you on the student view, but the same process applies for the teacher view. So let's go see what we're actually failing, what we're working with here. So like I said, you could go to actions and see it in actions. You could say, okay, well, I'm failing, you know, a bunch here, it looks like, but each one of these essentially has failed. But I like to do it through pull request, the feedback, back, I like to spend the time on here, and I can just hit details and it will take me here, and I have my red X right here, the auto grading part. So I can drop that down. And now the real important part is just to scroll all the way to the bottom here until you start seeing a bunch of red. And then once you start seeing a bunch of red, we're actually going to scroll up. So our first error happens right here. So we failed the count one dog test, and we got 0 out of 64 points because we had 64 points, I guess, worth of tests there. And our tests are failing. Why are we failing here? Because we don't have our methods written. So it's kind of telling us like, okay, there's compilation errors. It doesn't have methods written, and I probably, oh man, did I mess up the method names? So let's go into the student view. I'm going to type some code in. We'll come back when we're looking at the code, and after the student has made a push to have some of this code, we will pick up from there to kind of see what's happening. And we have code written now. The only one that should work is our count dogs. This one's going to pass one of our tests, unfortunately, because of, if I zoom in a little more just so you guys can see, just because I had to say return true, just so it would build, but it's going to pass one of them even though it doesn't actually do anything. So count dogs is the only one that should work 100%. We should get our full credit for that, hopefully. So I'm going to commit the changes and zoom back out so we can kind of see what happens. Now that I've committed the changes, I can go to my pull request and it's going to start running stuff. And this time I shouldn't see a bunch of compilation errors unless I made some other mistake, which at that point might just scrap this whole video and restart it later when I'm more awake enough to not make silly mistakes as this is running. And how long is this video already? It's not terrible, I guess. Okay, so checks have failed. Let's see which ones. Hopefully it's not every single check. I hope to see some kind of positive. So let's scroll all the way to the bottom, and we're getting 0 out of 64 points. Okay, so that's not good. What is happening here? Semicolon expected. I missed a semicolon. That's my mistake. While we're waiting for the test to run again, I think it was that I said T in here instead of result. So I tried to assert false the object instead of the Boolean that I wrote because I wasn't paying attention when I wrote it. So that should have been, I'm hoping that was the fix, and we will see. Let's go back into details, and red X on single class testing. That's fine. No dogs. Sweet. No dogs passed. And count dogs passed as well. So we got 24. So we got our 12 and 12. So let's open that back up and kind of walk through this now that we actually have some passing. So again, I recommend scrolling all the way to the bottom until you start seeing red essentially. And that's where your tests are going to be, and then work your way back up from there. So if you pass the test, one of our test cases that we set up on the thing, we'll get this green light checkbox with what test we passed. And at the very bottom is how many points you got overall. So we have, we passed our count one dog, and we can see it ran one test, and we passed that one test. And so we can scroll up. Our next one is no count dogs, and that ran in this test, and it ran just one test, and we passed that one test, right? We had one run and 0 failures, 0 errors. So that was our other 12 points. And if we go back up, single test class did not pass. And if we go up here, it's because we ran 5 tests and 2 failed. So we had the should return false when both in the same sign. So because we just said return true in that method, it expected false, but it got true. And then in our hello blank, it expected hello blank, but it was given the empty string. So we can kind of see what the error was there. We can see all that there. And then the same thing, if we scroll back up to our all test, it's going to be the same message, the 5 run and 2 failures, and we can see the expected and everything there, and we can also see the errors in a little more detail on the exact line that the error happened and stuff up here. So it gives the same kind of output, it just is a little more detailed. So that was what the students see and everything like that. And another cool thing, just to end this video, because this one definitely hasn't gone on long enough. Didn't I say at the start of this one that I wanted to keep it super short? I'm pretty sure I said that. Anyways, I want to end by saying that students can give themselves a badge, like to see easily if they're passing or failing tests. If they just go to actions and then they click on their workflow, which is always going to say GitHub Classroom workflow, and then you click on the 3 dots over here, you can create a status badge, which will look like this. So they can copy this code. So they can copy that code there. And actually, I like to change the default event to push. There we go. So they can, once they change it to push, copy the status badge. And if they go to their code section, so since this is their repository, they can edit this README. And I kind of like them to put it right at the top here. And they can hit commits. So now when they're pushing their code, after they've pushed their code up from the IDE, because they're not going to be making changes on GitHub, they can push their code up and then at a later time come and check. Am I still failing? Am I passing? Because this will change to green and it'll say passing once they have passed all the tests that you selected. So it's a quick glance for them, a quick thing for them to be able to see. And even you, because I'm going to switch to the teacher view here, it's a quick thing even for you to come in and look at their repository quickly. And if they're failing, then you can go see more specifics by going into the pull request, the actions, looking at which ones are failing. But if they're all passing, you can quickly identify that as well. So that's a cool little thing to see as well. And that leads us out of our auto grading. Like I said, if you're hearing all this, congratulations. That means I didn't have to go re-record anything. I don't know why I said congratulations, because you just sat through like 30 minutes of a video. I should have just made one video and had it been 30 minutes instead of trying to do these 3 shorter ones that end up being the same time. But anyways, that leads us out of the auto grading. If you guys have more specific questions, want to see more things with the auto grading, if you want to see more things with the auto grading or anything different like that, let me know in the comments or reach out to me some way and say, hey, I'm interested in seeing this. I'll throw something together. Hopefully it'll be a lot shorter. Like the first videos were shorter than these 3. So hopefully I can get them down if you guys ask for other stuff and they won't be really long like this. I really apologize for them being so long. But until then, guys, everybody have a week.